Why does the market always crash at the exact millisecond your finger hits the buy button? It feels absurdly personal, right? You stand on the sidelines forever just watching. You see the price majestically climbing toward $100,000. At some point, you can't take it anymore. You finally buy in, and it feels like 3 seconds later, someone pulls the plug. Boom! 40% down, you break out in sweat, panic, and sell everything just to stop the pain. And then, like clockwork, the price recovers. Spoiler, the universe doesn't hate you. This isn't bad luck. It's a cold, brutal mechanism, a ruthless market cleanse. The market is basically a giant vacuum designed to suck money from nervous beginners and shove it straight to relaxed pros. If you buy in the middle of the biggest hype, you're volunteering to fund someone who bought smart 2 years ago and is now taking profit. And if you sell crying in a crash, you're serving a billion-dollar institution that plans in decades the perfect discount on a silver platter. Your own psychology has probably destroyed more portfolios than every crash in history. This wild volatility, these extreme swings, are the admission price for Bitcoin. It's the ticket fee for a performance that makes every other asset class look like a dusty savings book. But the average retail investor treats Bitcoin like a crappy slot machine in a corner bar. If it doesn't ring and flash right after you put money in, they think it's broken. They panic sell, try to time the perfect re-entry, and usually miss the train completely. Don't trust fairy tale math that promises riches by next Tuesday. Trust that these violent swings are simply the ruthless bouncer keeping pure gamblers outside. Are financial news outlets designed to keep you poor? Let's see how they make money. Financial media sell attention. And panic sells 1,000 times better than boredom. Bitcoin builds generational wealth over a decade is an insanely boring headline. Bitcoin crashes, billions wiped out. Is this the end? That gets clicks. But look a little deeper. Throughout history, smart money does the exact opposite of what the news suggests when the headlines are the scariest. When the media screams that harsh regulation is coming, BlackRock calmly files an ETF application in the background. When newspapers scream environmental disaster, whole nations are already mining with surplus green energy. If you let a journalist who isn't even invested shake your conviction, you will lose your 0.1 Bitcoin. You'll sell to protect yourself from a threat that either doesn't exist or is wildly exaggerated. The news cycle is only a mirror of retail investors. It shows what the herd feels, not what the market does. If you read the news to decide whether to hold or sell, you've already lost. You're reacting to pure noise while the real data in the background shows the pros are buying heavily. Why will trying to diversify your small portfolio ruin you in the end? This is the most common reason people lose their Bitcoin. It starts with a simple thought. My 0.1 Bitcoin isn't enough. It's worth maybe $6,000 right now. I need to grow it faster. I'll swap it into this cheap new altcoin, wait for a 10x, and then buy a whole Bitcoin. Sounds genius, right? In reality, it's financial suicide. In a bull market, everyone feels like an investment genius while prices rise. But when the market turns, those small altcoins often bleed 90% versus Bitcoin. If you swap the unmatched security of the Bitcoin network for a speculative startup token, you're trading certainty for a lottery ticket. And the worst part, most people never swap back. They get greedy. They ride the coin up, feel like the Wolf of Wall Street, and then ride it all the way back to zero. In the end, they sit on a pile of worthless tokens and have 0 Bitcoin. This isn't about luxury, it's about preserving your wealth. The goal is to secure your 0.1 Bitcoin before the door closes forever. Not to gamble it away trying to get rich by next Tuesday. Owning thousands of cheap coins feels better to the ego than owning 0.1 Bitcoin. That's a psychological trap. Ask yourself, are you really smart enough to time the perfect exit, or will you bleed out with the others? So then there's another trap. I'll wait for a pullback. You sit on cash, you look at Bitcoin around $60,000 and tell yourself, I'll buy at $50,000. It drops to 50, but then you say, this looks shaky. I'll wait for 40. It hits 40. You read the news and think, a global recession is coming. I'll wait for 30, and then the market turns. Price bounces and shoots to 70. You freeze. Your ego refuses to buy higher than you originally wanted. It climbs to 80. You're completely out of the game. You're waiting for a crash that never comes. That's how people get left behind. They try to outsmart the market instead of simply spending time in it. The only strategy that works for normal people is a monthly savings plan. Just invest the same amount over and over. Nobody makes movies about dollar cost averaging because it's painfully boring, but it's the only way to beat your own ego. The goal isn't to guess the absolute bottom. The goal is to secure your 0.1 Bitcoin before the massive supply shock drives the price into realms where your normal salary no longer matters. While you wait for the perfect price, supply keeps getting tighter. You're playing a guessing game against mathematical inevitability. Who is on the other side when you panic sell your coins? Do you really think you're selling to a guy named Kevin who still lives in his parents' basement? No, you're selling to a high-speed algorithm. An algorithm owned by a sovereign wealth fund, a public corporation, or an ETF provider. Let's be honest, these giants plan in decades. They don't care about last month's inflation report. They don't care about the next election. Compared to you, they have endless money. When you sell because your rent went up or you got cold feet, they're already waiting to vacuum up your coins. This is the great shakeout. It's like musical chairs, except the chairs are being removed by giants. Suddenly, your tiny 0.1 Bitcoin is a much larger slice of the cake that's still for sale. We're heading toward a massive liquidity crisis. There simply won't be enough Bitcoin for everyone who wants it. If you sell now, you're voluntarily leaving the scarcest asset in human history. The moment big players lock the doors from the inside, you give up your seat at the table to someone who will never sell it back to you. Will a simple $3,000 car repair in the future maybe cost you $1 million fortune? That's the most tragic reason people ultimately lose everything. Not because they traded badly, not out of fear, but because real life got in the way. The car breaks down, you lose your job, the vet is expensive. And because you didn't have an emergency fund in your regular bank account, you were forced to sell your Bitcoin just to survive everyday life. This is a classic defensive mistake. You can't hold Bitcoin for 10 years if you can't even live 10 months off your cash account. The biggest threat to your portfolio isn't you, it's your lack of everyday cash. If you put every cent into Bitcoin and live paycheck to paycheck, you're extremely vulnerable. One emergency and you're out. You need a shield. You need a financial buffer in fiat so you don't have to raid your crypto vault when life hits you. Don't focus on today's dollar price. Focus on how many people in the future will never be able to own even as much as you do today. If you have to sell 0.05 Bitcoin to fix your transmission, you won't be paying $3,000. In missed gains, you might be paying $300,000 of future purchasing power. That's a brutally expensive car repair. What happens when the math literally breaks the market? We need to talk briefly about the year 2030. Why 2030? By then, over 98% of all Bitcoin that will ever exist will have been mined. Almost none will be newly created. Bitcoin's inflation rate will effectively be zero. At the same time, our normal currencies will be devalued faster and faster by debt and interest. This isn't a wild conspiracy theory, it's the simple mathematical design of our money system. They have to print money to service the debt. So we have a head-on collision. An endless supply of dollars meets an absolutely limited supply of Bitcoin. Once you understand this math, the scarcity becomes even more extreme. By 2030, it will be statistically impossible for the average person to own even 0.1 Bitcoin. With a normal job, you won't be able to save enough. The price will outrun our wages forever. If you sell now because you think you can buy back cheaper later, you're betting that this mathematical collision won't happen. You're betting against the code. And so far, the code has a perfect track record. Do you have the patience to do nothing for 6 years? It sounds easy, I'll just hold. But doing nothing is the hardest thing in the world. Humans are wired to act. When we see danger, we run. When we see opportunity, we pounce. Bitcoin demands that you suppress your biological instincts. It demands that you stay bored while everyone else freaks out and stay stoic while everyone else panics. It's the ultimate character test. Can you watch your portfolio drop 50% and still keep your savings plan running? Can you watch it double and not blow it on a new car? That's the filter. Every day the market asks you, do you deserve to be part of this elite 21 million club? Most people answer no by clicking the sell button. You're not fighting the market, you're fighting your own craving for instant reward. If you can beat yourself, you keep your coins. If not, the market will gladly take them. Will you be lying on a beach in 2030 with 0.1 Bitcoin, sipping cocktails? Let's be honest, probably not. But look deeper. It could be the difference between retiring with dignity and working until you drop. It could be the only asset you own that the state can't melt away through inflation. The great shakeout is happening right now. The big institutions are counting on you giving up. They're counting on you getting bored, getting scared, or getting greedy for trash coins. Don't give them that satisfaction. But beware, what good is the hardest money in the world if you leave it on an exchange and the next crypto CEO runs off to the Bahamas with your coins? Right, absolutely none. That's why in the next video, I'll show you not only why you desperately need that 0.1 Bitcoin, but also how to store it absolutely safely, far away from exchanges, protected from hackers, secured like an unbreakable digital fortress.